Hi, everyone. I am going to be sharing a slideshow as we go along. So if you'll give me just a quick moment. And then Beth, I think you're first to introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Beth Moeller. I am director of our Connect Community Living. I have been at the ARC for a really long time, and we have a team of people that help people live on their own in St. Louis County.
Hello, everybody. I am J.R. Johnson. I am the Assistant Director of Transition Services for the St. Louis ARC. I've been with the ARC for just over 6 years and been in the transition program for 4 years. Two of the programs I oversee are Launch and Next Ed.
Then my name is Emma Burrows. I am the coordinator of community living. So I work with Beth in the Connect program, but then I also work somewhat closely with JR when talking with people that are transitioning potentially from transition services to community living. But before we get started, and before you hear from us with our teaching and coaching and advice, we wanted to introduce a couple of our participants. So let's hear from them first. Katie, if you'd like to start just by introducing yourself and then sharing what program you're in and just anything about yourself that you want to share.
Hi, my name is Katie. I'm in the Next Ed class, and I also go to Artist First Art Studio.
Awesome. Thanks. Anything else you want to add about yourself?
I'm really good in class with JR.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. And then Carrie, do you want to share? I know you're literally right here with me.
My name is Carrie. I'm in the Connect program. I just recently moved back to St. Louis in April and to join Connect. I was living in Chicago. I was in a program there that helped me learn to be independent, and I stayed there for 14 and a half years. I was on my own after that, in Chicago being independent, and just back here and getting used to Connect and everything here.
Great. Thanks for sharing, guys. So I think the first bit of advice that JR, Beth, and I have for you all when you are thinking about developing a plan for independent living is to take things one step at a time. This is just some advice to get started. And so no one plan can work for every single person. There's not one answer or guide. Everyone's plan will be different. And regardless of what you may think, we believe that you can do it. So we're going to walk through 4 different steps today. Again, taking one step at a time to help you consider developing a plan for independent living. So number 1 is identifying where you are and building your confidence. Number 2 is independent living skills, practicing them and planning. Number 3 is encouraging you to take a little bit of risk and build your resources. And then number 4 is the portion where we will share resources at the St. Louis ARC and potentially discuss ones beyond the St. Louis ARC. So first step, identifying where you are. I think the biggest question is to ask yourself why it is that you want to move out. We think that really finding an answer to why it is that you want to move out and finding those positives can really help you to identify and get that purpose for moving. Number 2 is celebrate what you've already accomplished. So you've probably done hard things before in your life and you can do them again. And number 3 is to talk to other people who have moved out. So we want to encourage you to ask others about their experiences. Nobody knows it all when they first move out. So like, in fact, we teach these skills and there are still some things that we are learning. JR and Beth, do you guys want to add anything to identifying where you are?
I will jump in. So identifying where you are to me is like thinking about how independent are you in your current place of living. So if you're with your parents in your family home, like what things do you do independently now? What things do you need help with? Just taking stock of where you are now in terms of doing things independently, spending time home alone, and then looking at like what sort of help you need to be safe and successful in your current residence.
Yeah, I think identifying where you are, you have to find that motivation, and that's where it's answering that question. Why do you want to be independent? Why do you want to move out on your own, or have that more ownership of your life? Because the only way we are going to accomplish things in life is finding that motivation to be able to accomplish those. And so knowing where you're at this moment is kind of seeing where are those areas that you need to grow or learn or strengthen those skills to be able to take that next step. And then, of course, to keep that motivation going, you have to have celebrations. So, anytime that you build a new skill or you build your comfort in something, you have that reward system that you can fall back onto and say, oh, this is where I'm really good. This is my strength. This is something I know how to do. So it keeps that energy level up, right? It keeps your positivity that, you can do this and you can accomplish these things because you've done it. You've been there. And then, of course, whenever it comes to identifying where you're at, remember that it's always a learning process. Anybody you ask that lives on their own or feels that they're independent in any stage of their life, they're going to learn something new, or have to learn how to do something new, or learn how to do it differently, right? There's a bunch of things that I've learned that I've had to relearn because I found a new way of doing it. So just know where you're at in that stage.
So step number 2, building your confidence. We would encourage you to, and this is kind of adding on to what Beth and JR have already said, but do something different. If you're having a hard time motivating yourself, do something different today from what you did yesterday. So this really means like getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and trying new things and really exploring your world and, figuring out what it is that you want to do. You got to find things that'll make you happy. Number 2 is focus on what you can control. So obviously, none of us can predict the future or change other people's minds, but we can make a plan and we can put our best foot forward. And number 3 is ask for support. So moving out on your own can feel really overwhelming, but the good news is that you don't have to do it alone. We have resources again here at the St. Louis Arc that we are about to talk about. And then you're not alone. People can build networks even at whatever age you are, like in your community, in your family, with your friend circle. You do not have to do any of this alone.
So I think I would add doing something different. I think when people live in their family home and there's just roles that people play and things that parents may have done for forever, and to switch it up and do something different, it can be challenging just to kind of get out of that rut. And you might think, well, my mom's always done the dishes or whatever it is. Like, to be really conscious, looking around, what could I take on? What small thing? And so doing something different, like saying to a parent or somebody else you live with, like, let me do this. And people might be surprised, but just doing something out of the ordinary can feel really good once you are like really focused on that.
Beth, I think you said it perfectly. Like it is, you have a perfect opportunity at this point where you're living with parents, you're seeing them do it, but now it's your turn to step in and try it. And taking that opportunity. So focus what you can control, look at the areas that, hey, I can do the dishes. I would be able to do that, and step in and try it. We don't all do things the same way, and that's okay. You have to find what works for you. And so if you're trying something that a way that somebody taught you how to do it or showed you how to do it and it doesn't work for you, talk to somebody else, do some research, look up different ways of how to do it so you can find the way that works for you. It's okay to try things and do things differently. I always talk about like chili recipes. Everybody makes chili differently. That doesn't mean that you make it wrong. You just make it different than somebody else because that's how you like it. And other people might like it that way too. But you just have to find that what works for you. So it's okay to try things multiple different ways till you find what works best for you.
Yeah, definitely. I do kind of wonder on that note, just about building your confidence, because this is something that we're all going through and all experiencing. Katie and Carrie, I know I told you I wouldn't ask you any questions until the end, but would you guys have any input on that? Have you guys done anything different recently than what you've done in the past, or have you tried something new, or have you stepped out of your comfort zone a little bit?
I'm trying something new. I have a chart that I do every single day. That's new at my
Great.
sister's house.
Okay. And what does that chart help you with?
It's a routine chart.
Carrie, have you been trying anything new recently?
I'd say for me, it would be trying to get out more and trying to talk to different people, new people, and trying new events.
Great. Thanks for sharing, guys. In this slide, we list some overarching independent living skills that many people talk about or go through. When you look at this list, it may feel like a lot. So please remember that both the process of learning some of these skills and the final execution of these skills, so what they will look like in your life, that's going to be different for every single person. You may not have a lot of calendar management like Katie's learning, but Katie's capable of doing that and wanting to do that. And so that's something that she's able and currently working on. You may have a lot of support with money management, but maybe you do focus and help to keep your own calendar. The important thing is just to remember that we're all constantly learning and growing. And so like we saw on the previous slide as well, there's not one way to do these things. And so the three of us and Katie and Carrie, if you guys think of anything and want to chime in, please feel free. But we're going to share and discuss some examples of these things, some similarities, and discuss differences that we've seen with people that we're supporting. So I think I kind of started us off already unintentionally by saying that, money management, for example, maybe this is something that you have somebody in your life that helps you with this piece, but you're really focusing on your calendar.
I'm working on money management.
Okay. Do you want to tell us how you're working on, you don't have to get into the specific numbers, but
Okay.
do you want to tell us roughly how you're working on money management?
Trying to stick to a budget every week.
Okay.
Trying to not go over, trying to, if I do spend a certain amount, I only have a certain amount on my debit card every week and an amount of cash every week. And I guess for me, it's let's say I spend a little on my debit, because not everything you can pay for, you can do with cash. You have to reimburse yourself at a bank and put money back into your account.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I do it. So as long as I don't go over my budget each week, that's what I'm working toward, just staying within a budget.
That's great. And is that a newer skill for you?
Yes, it's always, money management has always been a challenge for me.
Okay, great. Well, I'm proud of you for trying out a new routine and trying something different. JR, Beth, do you guys want to chime in here?
I would say that money management is probably a challenge for most people, like most people that I know, not just people through the ARC, but most people. And figuring out what system works for you is a trial and error. So you try something and you see what works well, but what needs to improve. And it's a whole process. So some people have family members who really oversee the big picture, like how much money is coming in, whether that's benefits or family money or money that you're earning at a job, and then making sure that the rent and other things are paid, and some people just budget their money for food and activities. Other people take in the whole big picture and really step up to managing it all. It's a lot to think through all the different aspects. So I think that I would encourage people just to think about like daily spending to start with, and what they can control and what they can't there, and then build from there.
Yeah, something else that caught my eye on this list is the example of calendar management, appointments, and routine. So some people that we support are really working on making their own doctor's appointments and keeping a calendar and making sure that they're on time to things and getting to different things at different times all the time.
That would be me as well.
Yeah, but other people really thrive off of having a routine where they know that they are going to go to work on this day of the week from this time, and like otherwise their routine is going to be pretty much the same, and then maybe their parents or family or staff help them out with appointments, and kind of those less frequent occurrences. Same thing with food preparation and grocery shopping. You know, we're not all gourmet chefs. I know I'm certainly not. My boyfriend does the cooking in my household, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. So we're not all gourmet chefs, and you have to find ways to feed yourself and stay healthy and get substance while also realizing what's in your limits and your wants, really.
You know, this is a huge list, and when you look at it, it can be very overwhelming. I will say that, you know, like Emma said in the beginning, it's going to be different for everybody. And so you really have to look at what areas that you feel like you need to strengthen or build those skills in. Remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Pick one area to focus in on at a time. You know, pick that one area that you want to improve in. When we decide to be independent and take more ownership and have the goal of, you know, independent living and living in that area, it takes patience. It takes time to build those skills. So, you know, if you are just exiting out of high school or you're starting to think about those goals, you know, think of those areas around your house now that you can be a part of. If that is managing your calendar or setting appointments, be active in those. If you're a parent with a young adult that has that goal, have them active when you're setting those appointments for them if you haven't already. You know, put the phone on speaker. Let them hear and experience while you're setting those appointments. Cooking, you know, find recipes that you want to cook as a family, and be a part of it. Be connected. Take that opportunity to learn from the people that you've been living with. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And don't be afraid for your young adult to make a mistake. I know it's really hard. We don't want anybody to have mistakes or, you know, what people would call failures, you know, but that's a learning opportunity. You know, I think those are the learning opportunities I learned the most from, is those mistakes I made. Oh, not going to do that again. Right. And so take that time, you know, look through the skills and say, hey, you know what? I'm really strong in this area. I feel very comfortable here, but this is an area that, you know, with communications, I don't share enough information with my family members, so they don't know what's going on with me, you know, or when I talk with the doctor, I don't give enough information, so they can't help me, you know. So if communication is something you need to work on and figure out the best way for you to communicate, that's where you find those outlets, find that help, or look at how you can build your own skills. But definitely be patient. It's not an overnight.
Mm-mm.
You're not gonna all of a sudden be ready.
Actually, JR, on that note, I'm sitting here and thinking like, gosh, I wish I had this list when I was moving out for the first time on my own. Do you feel like you could have benefited from having a list like this when you first moved out on your own?
Oh, definitely.
I think so.
there's a lot of these skills that I know for a fact I watched my parents do when I was younger and didn't think twice about them until I was living on my own and then being like, oh, that's how you do this. I think with the doctor's appointments, when I was younger, my dad made all those appointments for me and I was not involved into them until I turned 18. And then all of a sudden the doctor wouldn't even talk to my dad. I had to do it all. And I didn't even know how to have those conversations, where I could have been more involved in the beginning.
There's a lot of this where, yeah, I mean, I had some basics, but I definitely was not, and I still don't feel like I'm an expert at all of these. I am happy to work on them and happy to think about them and brainstorm systems and structures for what's going to work best for different people. But the fact of the matter is that my plan may not work for you and your plan may not work for me, and vice versa for everybody in this room, virtual room. I think we already said this, but our next slide is all about taking risks. So again, reiterating, we want you to try new things. We want you to be curious, ask questions. Learning really involves that risk-taking piece and some exploration. And so get out there and go and explore your world. We want you to be safe, but also take a little bit of risk.
I love the be curious part, like just having an open mind, asking, how do you do this? Tell me more. Moving out is a huge step. So the more you can learn, the better off you will be.
Yeah. I actually remember when I was 18, like not being afraid to ask questions and being curious. And I remember walking up to my banker who like I kind of knew how to use, like I knew how to check how much money I had and just the basics, but I didn't have a budget back then. I just knew what my expenses were going to be coming up, right? And anyway, I kind of started becoming friendly and talking with the banker when I would go and deposit my checks. And I kept asking them questions like, well, what would you do if, this was your situation? And one of them advised me, one of them gave me some really good advice. And so just building relationships in the community, seeing the same people, going the same places over and over, and asking lots of questions.
I like the try new things part, and I have a reason for that.
Yeah. Because
trying new things has been a challenge for me in different areas of my life. And I remember somebody telling me, though, that like what we've been talking about through this whole webinar, basically is that if you're comfortable all the time, you never step outside your comfort zone and try new things, you never grow, you never learn, you never experience what could be out there.
Right on.
And so I think it's important to try new things.
Great point. But does it make it any easier?
It doesn't make it easier at all. It makes it all the more challenging. But you know what? I guess that's the fear of it and the beauty of it at the same time.
I even included a little academic person on here because something I thought about is like I've spoken with a few people who are in their late teens or early 20s who are like, oh, I never want to go to college and I never want to, research or do any of this stuff again. And then like they get out of school and like, oh, wait, maybe I should explore the options that are out there. And maybe I do want to learn a little bit more. And I also want to just include that if you remain open and curious, there might be a program that is a good fit for you. And maybe it's not the traditional way that you think of going to school. Maybe it's a different sort of program. But if you remain curious and stay open, then you might be able to find those opportunities that do fit and not just think about the one way that we have set in our minds. So next, we're going to be talking about building your resources. So when I think of this subject, I really think about building a toolbox of like, who can you reach out to for help? How do you identify people who you can ask for help, and building your network of tools or people or anything that can be of a resource to you, because like we've said earlier, you're not in this alone. But we also know that life can be challenging, and people thrive when they are connected to a lot of resources, meaning that if, like, let's say I always go to mom for everything. Well, what happens when mom's not available? So building a list or just different options for you of, like, who else can I go to? Or what other tool can I use? Do I have a cheat sheet somewhere? Or can I Google it? Or, what's going to be the right resource for me? Is there an employee at the store that I can ask? Is there the banker that has been friendly with me that I feel like I can kind of trust?
Can I ask Emma?
Yeah. Can you ask a staff member? Thank you. So these are just questions that we thought of that would help you build your network and build your resources so that you're not just leaning on one person or two people. Anybody else?
Emma, you said one thing on here that, somebody you trust, and in my life, there's, multiple people I trust, but there's people I trust for certain things. I don't go to just one person. And when I moved out, I realized that very quickly who I went to for certain things. If something broke at my house, I didn't call my mom because my mom didn't know really if it was broken or what to do. I would call my dad for those situations, right? But if I had a really bad day and I just needed to vent to somebody about my bad day, my dad was not the person I would call because he didn't want to talk about my feelings. He would just be like, "Oh, what's wrong with your car? I'm hearing it squeak," right? He would change topics on me because he wasn't there for those conversations. He was there for, what can be fixed. So knowing who you can go to for different situations in your life, and listening to where other people are strong, right? I got married and my wife's uncle is extremely good with money. His money management skills are very, very strong. So I know somebody that's in my life that has a very strong skill in that. So I use that, right? I ask for advice from him, and so it's looking at the people that are in your life that can be a support to you in different ways, and not being afraid to ask for help, right? A lot of people feel like independence means you have to be all on your own and do it all yourself. And that's not what independence is. Independence is being able to willing to try, but then also know who you can ask for help, right? If my car broke down, I'm not going to fix it. I'm going to take it to a mechanic, right? I'm going to take it to the experts. I'm not going to do it on my own. So finding those different outlets that can help you.
I like that point.
Yeah.
Different people for different things.
There's a really good tool out there by Charting the Life course. There's two of them, I think. There's the supported decision making list, and then there is also the support star, integrated support star. If you were interested in a resource for something like this, please reach out to us. We can get you the right tools and get you a more thorough list there. So kind of an external resource already that we're sharing. Thinking about resources, easy transition there. We're going to start by sharing a couple of resources that are available within the St. Louis ARC. And then I think naturally in conversation within the Q&A and throughout, like me mentioning Charting the Life course, we will also mention resources that are available beyond the St. Louis ARC. So not, again, just us, not only how can we help you, but also who else can help too.
There we go. So I'm within the next department. And so some of our transition programs that we have, I'll start with the fun one. One's just a social one, an opportunity to socialize, meet others that are in that same boat. They want to meet people. They're taking that next step in their future. So it's Bounce Forward. Those are going to be social events that we host once a month. They're for ages 16 to 30. And they're, like I said, they're just opportunities for you to come out, meet others, start figuring out a plan, maybe develop friendships, that could develop into natural supports and those kind of things. Our next one that we do have openings for would be in December. Our November one is this Saturday, and it's full. But our next one is going to be in December. They are free for anybody who registers. So they are free events. There is limited space, so make sure that you do sign up quickly. Katie, you have attended some of these Bounce Forward events, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to share some of your experiences in the Bounce Forward events?
I remember like we went for a walk and we saw the Halloween characters.
Yeah, so the last one we went down to Main Street, St. Charles for Legends and Lanterns and got to see all of the Halloween characters. So these are going to be events that we're going to have out in the community. We're going to go and explore different things that different communities host or have available to us. The next program that I'm going to talk about is Launch. That one's going to be for ages 16 to 30. It is for residents of St. Louis County, St. Louis City, St. Charles, and Jefferson County. And it's a month-by-month program where individuals work with a transition advisor within group sessions and one-on-one coaching sessions to set up goals and take that next step in their life. So really what we're looking at is what are those areas that you want to strengthen or gain more knowledge in or accomplish. And what you're going to do in that one is break those goals down into smaller tasks, something that you could work on each week to take that next step to hopefully accomplish your goals.
I like that.
So in that program, we have worked with relationship development, post-secondary education, employment, and independent living skills. And then the last one is the one that Katie is in, and that is Next Ed. Next Ed is a program for individuals 18 to 30. Right now, it's eligible for anybody in St. Louis County and St. Louis City. And what this is it's a 10-week program. So it's 3 sessions that last 10 weeks. And in those sessions, we are looking at the 9 pillars of independence. You guys could test me on what those 9 pillars are. I always randomly leave one out. It is on our flyer though, so you could definitely go through when you receive the flyer to look at those. But in those sessions, what we do is we focus in on 3 of those 9 pillars and build those skills within those pillars. And what we do is it's a in-person and virtual program. So in person, we actually rent out an Airbnb where we practice inside of a living space. And then we are virtual for you to have an opportunity to talk and discuss and practice those skills where you're living right now. Katie, would you like to share some of your experiences with Next Ed so far and what you're working on and how's it going?
We are working on routines and self-determination.
Awesome. Katie also did a summer program with us called Next Ed Challenge, where we actually practice living away from the family. And we rent out dorms at UMSL University. And it's a week-long program where individuals get to practice those 9 pillars while living at dorms for a week. So we do have one other program within Next. It's not transition focused, but it is somebody that is 18 and up can access it. You will make sure that you do not, it's somebody without a Medicaid waiver. So that is one of the limitations for the funding. But it's called LifeTech. And LifeTech is a program that supports people that are trying to take that next step. And what they're trying to do is pair technology and how technology can help you take that next step in your life. And so they look at the technology that's in your life now and how that pairs with the goals that you have to want to accomplish. And they're going to try to help you use that technology or other technology to take those next step in your life. What's really cool about this program is they actually set you up with 3 training sessions on how to use that technology and how that would work to take that next step. So if you have any questions about any of our programs. For the transition parts, you could just email next@SLARC. If you would like to have more information on that life tech, you can email lifetech@slark.org, or you can scan the QR codes that we put on the side.
All right. Well, next, we'll talk a little bit about Connect, which again is the program that Beth and I are in, as well as our coworker Amanda, who is wonderful but not able to make it tonight. So we, with Connect, focus on 3 different portions of Connect. The first one being our meetups. I really like to emphasize our meetups because many of them are open for anybody to attend, whether you are a part of our programming yet or not. So our meetups are on an app called the Meetup app. If you wanted that link, you could email us at connect@slark.org. Those meetups can be virtual. We have weekly virtual meetups, and then we also have monthly in-person meetups for adults with disabilities. Most of our virtual events are free. I can't think of a single virtual event that hasn't been free, but I don't want to say all of them because you never know. And then many in-person events are also free to attend. However, if we are doing something like an activity where we are all going out to dinner, then you may need to still pay for your own expenses at that event. So pay for your own dinner, make sure to include the tip. Those in-person events on the Meetup app, staffing is really limited there. And so, yes, while we encourage everybody to attend, please note that attendees that do come, they need to be safe without supervision. It is really intended for folks who are either looking to move out on their own one day and hoping to move out on their own, or are currently living independently. There's 2 pieces to the Connect program. We have our pre-ISLA program. ISLA stands for Independent Supported Living Arrangement. And then we have our ISLA program. Pre-ISLA is for adults who are living at home with family and want to move out within the next 1 or 2 years. Typically, when this person is looking to move out, they are looking to move out into market rate apartment housing. We are funded only currently in St. Louis County. Shout out to PLB, Productive Living Board. So staff would meet with that person one-on-one once a week to try to plan for that goal of moving out within the next 1 or 2 years. We would talk about the vision and plan for living independently, talk about building skills and structures for safety and success. So oftentimes the pre-ISLA program really incorporates both the individual and the family, because again, this is all about interdependence. It's not a one-stop shop, you're going to know it all sort of a situation. We also talk about understanding timelines for moving forward, and we assist in the search for housing to ideally join our ISLA program. Beth, do you want to jump in for ISLA?
Sure. So ISLA, Independent Supported Living Arrangements. So we currently support between 70 and 80 people living in their own apartment all over St. Louis County. So we currently only have funding in St. Louis County. There are other agencies that provide this support in other areas. And as the screen explains, it's St. Louis County residents who want to live in their own apartment and have staffing. Usually it looks like staff meeting with a person once or twice a week to set up systems to be safe and successful. So all the skills that we talked about before of managing your money and keeping a calendar and communicating, all those skills, those are the things that we look at to see what sort of supports you might need. And then the staff provide those supports a couple of times a week, maybe some other virtual check-ins besides the in-person meetings. we really have huge success in helping people live in their own place with or without a roommate.
I said, and this leads us to our Q&A portion.
Someone asked, what are the next steps?
So next steps are really dependent on who you are and what it is that you are like looking to accomplish. I would encourage you to reach out to somebody at the St. Louis ARC. You can contact our main line, maybe ask to speak to family supports, or you could email both of our programs and just ask if you're a good fit. You can email next@slark.org, or you can email connect@slark.org.
So we have a question here from a parent saying tips for how parents can be supportive of their loved one gaining independent skills. So as a parent, I will jump in here, and JR, feel free to follow up. As a parent, like really looking at the things that we talked about of how we can help our person to take baby steps towards being more independent. So what can they take control of at home? What can they do more? And knowing that they may not do it perfectly. Like they may have to do it a bunch of times to learn how to do it, and just accepting that. It can be hard to do, but accepting, that they're learning additional skills that they will need to live on their own. Sometimes it's easier to do it for somebody, but really giving them the opportunity to take ownership of things at home. And then, one thing that I really struggle with as a parent, my anxiety about my daughter being alone overnight, like taking steps from wherever you are to having your person be home alone and knowing who to call or who to contact if they need help. So that's where I always think to start. JR, you want to jump in on that?
Encouragement is the first part. Encourage them to try new things. Invite them to be involved in the things that you're doing. If you're cooking dinner or you're doing laundry, involve them, invite them, encourage them. Beth said it perfect. They're not going to do it exactly the same way as you. And so be patient with them while they develop their way of doing things. It's just as much the transitioning from teen to young adult or building independence is just as hard for a parent as it is for the young adult. I am not looking forward to that time for me because my kids are 6 and 4. And I can already tell you that it already hurts my feelings when they tell me they don't need my help to put the shoes on, that they want to do it on themselves. It also drives me crazy that it takes them 20 minutes to put their shoes on when I could do it in 3 minutes. So I do have to build my patience. And just be ready to encourage them when they finally get those shoes on, right? And I know I'm talking about a 4 and a 6-year-old, but going all the way up to somebody that's building those skills, if it's trying to communicate or trying to develop their routines or cook something or do the dishes, it might take them longer than it will take you, but be patient. Let them experience it. Don't be afraid for them to have those mistakes or those mess-ups. If they're responsible for doing their laundry and they run out of clean clothes, I know that we want to have clean clothes, but sometimes we have to have those natural consequences in life, and it's hard as a parent, but that's going to be one of those things is, they have to learn how to be responsible for those things. And the only way you can do it is by doing it. And experiencing it for ourselves. So be patient. Let them try things, experiment with them. Don't just do it for them, do it with them. And that's probably the challenge because it's going to test your patience, but patience is virtue here. That would be my best advice to that.
I know it can be difficult, but try your best to keep an open mind, with the exception of keeping like your child safe, of course, but like we all do things a little bit differently. And so when I think about, I don't know, like I'm going to use, cleaning as an example. Like maybe some of us are very organized and like to make piles and do one room at a time. And maybe some of us are kind of like, oh, I'm going to start over here and then I'm going to go over here. And maybe some of us don't want to measure things precisely. Maybe we want to do an estimate when we're cooking. And actually, I support one person who, when she uses her oven, we learned this through trial and error. She does not want to change the temperature of her oven. And so instead of doing it the way that I was really thinking that we should do it, by following a recipe and putting it at 425, her oven starts at 350 degrees, and she has learned to eyeball food and make sure that it is safe for her to eat, rather than like keeping it and cooking it at that higher temperature for a certain amount of time. So she does it a little bit differently, but she's still safe with it. So staying open and letting your child try things in the way that they want to try them.
Well said.
Gary.
Okay, skipping to some other questions.
Well, I see one, Beth. There's one that leads perfectly into. So one says, are there support groups for parents that follow whatever you are working on with the young adult so we can reinforce at home? It reminds me of, it may not be exactly what you're looking for with exactly this content, but there's something called the Joyzen workshop, which teaches and supports families to move from the caregiver role to more of an advisor role. Beth, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So it is a workshop that Sharon Spurlock in our family supports department runs, and we don't have the information right at hand, but it is all over our newsletters. It's ongoing. So we can provide you with that if you're interested. So we have a question. Do you have steps to help a person live in a group setting? So this seminar really isn't about group living. However, we can touch on roommates. Emma, do you want to speak to roommates?
Sure, yeah. So if your person is looking to live independently with a roommate, we do have a roommate meetup, which is also listed on our meetup app. If you have any questions about that, please email us at connect@slark.org. During that roommate meetup, we allow attendees to join us and chat about who they are, what they're looking for in a roommate, their preferred location, maybe their budget. We also keep a spreadsheet, if permissible, of course, by the person who is attending. And we keep that spreadsheet so that we as staff can try to support individuals to foster connections, even if they're not able to attend the roommate meetup. So for example, if you sign up for a roommate meetup once and you fill out one of our roommate profiles, we may notice that you're looking for a similar area to somebody and you're roughly in the same budget. Even if you weren't able to attend the meetup, if you were really interested in finding a roommate, we could try to facilitate a connection, or ask the other person if it's okay if we pass along their information and allow you to reach out to the families. So yes, we're happy to help with roommate situations. Although this webinar specifically is not really intended for those group settings, I will say that you could contact somebody at the St. Louis Arc in general within the Family Supports Department, and they may be able to help just give you some guidance and answer a couple of questions.